Hello, Brother Monroe here. Welcome back to Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts and to the British campaign, the Classic campaign, where, once again, as the last episode, if you haven't seen the last episode, go back and watch the last episode for a full explanation. But to cut a long story short, all of my commentary for this episode was not recorded. No, it was not, because the big light on the microphone wasn't on and I didn't notice. It was more insidious software-related things. So, unfortunately, you are going to get brief introductions to each battle with my initial thoughts. You're going to get some post-commentary on the battles. The rest, you can just enjoy you can just enjoy the purity of naval combat from the Age of Steel, and I will talk through my thinking and the map-based stuff and things. And I've actually not paid attention to what on earth was happening in this battle, but we are still at war with Spain, who have been fighting like possessed demons, really hard to convincingly put down their ships. These armoured cruisers are probably their worst ships. Well, maybe the torpedo boats. But at least now, the torpedo boats are potentially. The armoured cruisers, really, against the battleships, don't stand much of a chance. But to Spain's credit, they are going to bloody well try. And they will try their very hardest. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this lovely battle. But it was lovely. So two of the armor cruisers just Good stuff. So, on the map, we are continuing to try and attack the Spanish Empire from the outside in to remove the ability of Spain to... Yeah, there's that. This is for the payoff from the last episode where I realised that the bloody conquest mission failed. Does the game now give me the option to, continue that conquest? No, of course it doesn't. So I will redirect those battleships over to Spain where they should have been all along. I should never have tried to go for that conquest mission. And yeah, here we go. So trying to clean up the Northern Marianas, Guam, Caroline Islands, etc. I think Oman and Western Sahara have already been taken. Is that right? And Equatorial Guinea is currently being invaded. Yep, there we go. And then next it will be the Balearic Islands. We can take the fight to Spain's home turf, basically. And this is me complaining. Right, and then after ending the turn, we get another battle. This time, more cruisers against battleships. Should be easy, but Spain will make this as difficult as possible. They're just been fighting so well, and I know I've said it a fair bit, but genuinely impressed by how the Spanish have handled their fleet against overwhelming odds. Like, we have 18 battleships, and they had one. That was never going to go well. But damn, if we didn't have superiority in sheer numbers, this would be pretty bloomin' even. The Spanish crews have been fighting really. Anyway, cruiser spotted, and I'll let you enjoy this battle. And just to say as well, the reason I would love to do post recording replay commentary. I don't know what you call it, but a combination of long COVID and having limited time to actually record episodes. I'm very sorry, but it's just not. However, I have fixed the problem. And the next episode will not have this problem, goddammit, because I will bloody well triple, quintuple check that it is recorded. Sit back and enjoy. And there we go. Eventually, the Spanish succumbed. Still needed to shoot them up an awful lot to get that through. Now, back on the map, Equatorial Guinea is done with, so I'm going to move those ships back up. I hadn't noticed it yet, but the Minotaur and the Theseus are actually Duke of Edinburgh class. They should have been mothballed years ago, and I totally forgot about them because they were down doing the conquest mission for Uruguay, and I forgot they were there. I know that sounds bad. This is me mentioning the fact that the map fold. So in Vanilla, Ultimate Admiral, there's a kind of like smudge, black. Well, it's not. What's the word for it? It's like a shadow, like it fades, which means you can't see certain ports and task forces. If they're there, they're just invisible, or you miss them. So thank you very much to the Duke, who in Tweaks and Fixes has removed that kind of that layer on top of the map. So yeah, now it's just a flat, straight edge. Before someone inevitably says in the comments, could you make the map wrap around? I don't think I'm amazed by what the Duke can do with Tweaks and Fixes, and he knows how to dig into the code and alter things. There becomes a point when thinking about, could you redo this with Dreadnoughts? Could you do that with Dreadnoughts? But the answer then becomes, well, yes, but at that point, you would be rebuilding the game from scratch. So the way it's built, that there's an interpretation layer between the actual game code and what you're able to mod. And some things that seem easy are really, really difficult to fix, and some things that you would think, really difficult, like adding a new country, are actually pretty straightforward. Anyway, I'm juggling my tech priorities. I'm thinking about trying to get semi-oil, but it's a fair way off. So I'm going to keep my priorities on getting the Mark II 12-inch gun, the Krupp 1 armor, and turbines. That's my plan, basically. If I could get semi-oil as well, that would be lovely. But I don't believe I'm going to. Anyway, if you're worried about that 173 months for the extremely large guns, that is still me using the emergency patched weights for the 17-inch gun. I think the new weight of 200 will work fine. I actually need someone to test that for me now I think about it. But yeah, bit of research juggling. Pretty happy overall. I think so. Oh yeah, I had a big spiel about tech splitting, but that's fine. Ignore me. Right. Moving into September, so a bit of a jump. Balearic Islands have fallen. Spain hasn't really been sending much out, but now they send out the Begonia. Again, she's sailing headlong into a massive fleet. There's not really too much she can do about it. But the weather is awful. And she's going to try her best. I will leave you to enjoy this battle. very quick. But that marks the beginning of the invasion of Spain proper. We're going to try and hit western Spain, basically cut the country in two, then move on to southern Spain, and then move on to northern Spain and take over the Spanish mainland. And you might be thinking, oh, that's great. What about Portugal? Portugal being a minor country, not like the Great Game or Dip Extend when it's released. So I can't attack it directly. This is one of the limitations of the classic way, the classic version. You can't interact with minor countries. I never even checked who Portugal was allied with, but I can tell you, with my knowledge of the future, that it was in fact Spain. So I think Portugal might have something to say about what I'm up to. Anyway, I'm admiring the blessedly American-free Caribbean. Checking in on France again. I seem to be very worried about France. I don't know why. They're pretty much allied to us. This is where I noticed that the two Duke of Edinburghs, Minotaur and Theseus, really should have been gotten rid of. I think it was in that last battle. I was like, why is this ship so bad? Why is it using Mark 1 9-inch guns? It's because it was a ship that I thought I'd gotten rid of. That's why. But no, there were still some of them around. Now, future me knows a little bit more about this situation than past me, but past me was very surprised when Warrior and Concord, who was sent to take Mozambique, discover that there is a massive Portuguese fleet. 6 battleships, armed cruisers, protected cruisers, torpedo boats, the lot. These are all Spanish designs, so they're all pretty good. Okay, the battleships aren't quite as good because they're not the Diligence. But, you know, there's still a lot of them. Torpedo boats look pretty menacing. That's a lot of stuff. Where did that come from? And I moan a bit about Portugal being a minor country, just being able to spawn ships out of nowhere. They won't spawn. They'll have bought them from the Spanish with an infinite budget because minor countries don't have the same limitations. And I'm talking about Dip Extended, blah 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 blah. How great Dip Extended will be. Download it if this annoys you too, etc etc etc. And then I choose to go into the battle. I try to run away, but I can't. I choose to go into the battle, manually run away, which I skipped. And then, and you'll notice this is the same turn, the same ships show up on the other side of the goddamn world off Funchal against the Niobe and the Blenheim. What the hell? I've seen the game cheat on behalf of the AI before, but having a fleet spawn in Mozambique and in the same month spawn off Madeira is absolute bullshit. Complete, total and utter bullshit. What the hell? And I wasn't sure at the time. You maybe see me kind of thinking here. I'm not even moving the mouse. There we go. I was like, well, are these the same ships? Are these different ships? No, they're the same ships. They're the same ships. I checked. I went back and I checked. And I can see it watching it back like this. They're the same bloody ships. What the hell? So I thought, oh, do you know what? I'll do the same thing I did before. I'll just hit retreat, get away. I never even saw the enemy ships with the other two ships. I'll just hit the retreat button. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. No problem at all. Oh look how close they spawned. Look how close they spawned the two fleets together. So there's no. I think I can probably retreat here. But realistically, no, I can't. I'm under fire. Torpedo boats are fast enough to catch me, even if I just obliterated one. These two cruisers are actually going to have to fight their way free. This isn't going to be a I just get to run away and AFK. I'm actually going to have to fight this. And I will. And you'll see me doing it. So I'm not going to talk it through all over again, except to say I make a boo-boo at one point, but it's fine. And these two cruisers do brilliantly well against this utter bullshit nonsense that the Portuguese have shown up. And I just think it's so funny that in the Portuguese campaign I was complaining about the British cheating. And in the British campaign I'm complaining about the Portuguese cheating. So it just goes to show the only common factor is AI cheats against the play. Okay, probably doesn't. But spawning the fleet twice, that is definitely not okay. Anyway, sit back, relax, grab a cup of tea, and enjoy this fighting retreat. Not the type of battle that you see very often. And there the end battle button appears. The ships are able to get away, and all is right in the world. Look at the damage Niobe did. Massive damage. A lot of it with the torpedoes, but a lot of it with her gunnery as well. Really impressive. I'm going to have to deal with the Portuguese. Fortunately, I will realise here. Well, here I'm like, oh, I better send them over, and then come back to it later. No. Move all these ships into the invasion zone, and then I realise, oh, no, I already have enough ships. So what I instead decide to do is to move the fleet that's just off Gibraltar, this one, with the Lord Nelson in it, back towards Madeira, and to meet up with the cruisers that were there. We'll see what the AI does. And then over in Mozambique, I'm going to leave the cruisers where they are, because I might be able to do another fighting retreat battle if I need to. And I'm going to move the Indian Ocean Fleet over to assist. And then I remembered something that I thought during one of the battles, and that was that the Terpsichore cruisers weren't really performing great. And I always like to try and put some shipyard stuff in an episode, even if it is just a refit. Although it looks like I've absolutely frozen in thought. There we go. Yeah, so I'm going to pull in the Terpsichores for a refit. I could pull in the Psyches for a refit. But I didn't. And will I? Or will I just sell them? I might just end up selling them when we get the new Light Cruiser 3. Anyway, upgrading the gun marks, pretty simple stuff. And I think the rest goes according to plan. Just upgrade all the techs. Oh, one thing I know. I remember what happens. So I put on all the techs and I end up overweight. So I reduce the range. But one thing I didn't check was was the range originally, and I thought I wasn't losing range, but I am. I think 7,500 was the original. Oh no! Oh no, I don't lose range. Okay, I did remember that right. Okay, so overall they end up about the same range, but yeah, I had to reduce the amount of coal in order to get the rest of the refit to work. There's spare displacement there that I didn't use up. They'll get refitted again at some point, I'm sure, and then that spare displacement will come in handy. Send them all through for a refit. Good stuff. And yeah, really, I want to get that Light Cruiser 3 built if I can. 3 of them are at sea, but that's fine. That's not a problem. Money, it's all looking fine. Tech is looking okay, I think. Oh yeah, this was me thinking about getting semi-oil again, and thinking about our Dreadnought project, trying to get the preheater, maybe thinking, oh, maybe I could get semi-oil. So I will dabble with putting a priority in boilers. However, I think after doing a bit of juggling, I realise that there's not much point. Oh, I can't remember now. What the hell did I do? Yeah, I'm looking at Dreadnought. Yes. So I'm looking at guns just now. But then I realised when I'm starting to think about guns that, oh, hang on. Gun layout techs are actually quite important early on, because I don't know if I've got the superimposed or the centerline techs. And then I will remember about the gun layout and realise that I don't have the techs I want. I'm just about to get 2 superimposed large guns, which is a really nice tech to have. We don't actually need anything beyond that. But I do want the tech that usually comes after it. So I'm like, oh, I'll put a priority on that. Then I realised that's probably unnecessary, given how short a time it is. So I take it back off and remind myself to turn it on at the start of the next episode. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Ultimate Naval Dreadnoughts. Bye for now.